In this video, we are going to learn how to do the hand sewing stitch, the running stitch. What you see before you are all the supplies you will need to do this sample. You will need your needle, thread, scissors, your fabric, a pencil or marking tool of some kind, preferably a pencil, a ruler, as well as some pins. So let's get started. Let's move some of these things out of the way. We're going to start with our fabric. Now, when we are hand sewing, most of the time, we are going to be actually sewing through more than one layer of fabric when we're doing a garment. So to simulate that, I'm just going to fold this fabric in half and give it a nice press here. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our ruler and just really kind of anywhere across the length of your fabric sample, you want to draw a straight line because the running stitch is often done on a straight line, but it can also be done on curves. So I'm just going to use my ruler to make a straight line. This video series is created for theatrical garment making, and often in theatrical garment making, we actually have a stitch line. We don't just sew a seam allowance amount. We have an exact line that we are stitching on. So I've drawn this line here, and to keep my fabric from shifting, I'm going to put some pins through my fabric. So I'm going to hold on to the head of the pin, which is the round bit or flat bit, depending on what kind of pin you have. I'm going to stab it through the fabric through all the layers, push it down, and bring it back up. I'm going to do about 3 pins in this piece. Just like that. So that's going to keep my fabric from shifting while I am sewing. So now I'm ready to get sewing. So I'm going to start off by getting my thread out. And I'm going to thread my needle. This is why you need your scissors. Thread my needle through the eye of the needle. Bring it around. Now for this stitch, we're going to do what's called a single thread, which means we're tying a knot in just one of the ends. So as you kind of pull your tail down, you've got 2 ends down here. You only need a knot in one end. That gives us a single thread. So I'm going to crisscross, wrap around my needle, and pull to get my knot. Okay. And I do have a little bit of tail here. That's okay. I'm going to leave that for now. So all we're going to do for the running stitch is you want to start right on the line. So I'm going to lift up the fabric so it's easier to hold. I'm going to push my needle. I'm going to start on one end. Since I'm right-handed, I'm working from the right going towards the left, opposite the way that I read. So I'm going to push my needle down right on that line. And then just like when I was pinning, I'm going to bring my needle right back up, right on that line. You want to go right on that line. You don't want to go sideways. See how I'm off on the line there? Poke your needle back up on the line. And I'm going to pull it through. So there's about that much space between those stitches. I'm going to replicate that. For a running stitch, you want your stitches to be about 1/4 of an inch apart all the way across. Now, if you're using this as a basting stitch, you would actually just make your stitches longer. It's the same motion. So I call this scooping because I scoop my needle down into the fabric and then back up. I'm going to go scoop down and back up. So this is one of the reasons it's called a running stitch, is because it's really quick and easy, instead of like probably what you've seen on the movies where like you stab through, you reach around, you pull your thread, and then you got to try and find where you came back out, stab back up from the bottom. That just takes so long. So for a running stitch, that means that we're doing this motion. We're going down and back up. There's one stitch. You can even take 2 stitches at a time. So I'm going to go down, back up. I'm going to go back down again and back up again. So see how my needle's going through the fabric twice? That's 2 stitches. So you can actually take more than 1 stitch at a time with this. So we just keep scooping in and out. I don't recommend doing more than 2 stitches. You'd have to have a really long needle to do that. We're going to go all the way till we get to the end. Right, now I'm at the end. For this sample, I want the starting knot and the finishing knot on the same side because we did a running stitch. So our needle should always be coming out of the same side. So I'm going to tie a knot in my fabric. And again, if you see me tying knots or threading my needle in a way that doesn't work for you, do what works for you. The important part is the skill of what the stitch actually accomplishes. Okay, so now that I've knotted it, I can cut off my extra. And there I have my running stitch. You can kind of see the blue on top of that stitch line. If I flip this over, it makes a dashed line. This is the running stitch. If you are hand basting something, you do this exact same series of steps. You just make your stitches really big so that they're easier to take out. That's it. Super simple. That is the running stitch.